Good morning, Katy Springs. How you guys doing?
Great.
Fantastic. So today looks a little different than regular church. As most of you know, we've been doing a podcast for about a little over a year now. And I want to help you understand one of the reasons why we exist, and I'm sure you probably know this if you've been around it for any length of time. There's 4 words, the reason why we exist. It's about the one. You're not going to find peace or purpose until you're in relationship with the one. And we're all glad. Most of you guys are in that relationship. That's really cool. But it doesn't end there. It's about reaching the next one. And how many times have you heard me say that? Well, you know, right at this point, we have people who are in Haiti who are reaching the next one in Haiti. We go to Belize. We go to Uganda. Over this next year, we want to challenge you to be reaching out into your coworkers and people on soccer fields and those kinds of things. Well, when Jonathan came, we got this harebrained idea that we might be able to reach more people with a podcast. And it actually started out like this. We wanted to do 10 of them so that people who are brand new in their faith could learn how to read their Bible and learn how to pray and those kinds of things. And so, but once we started, I don't know what it was. Maybe we just liked the sound of our voice so much that we just kept doing them. And at this point, 10 Steps Further is reaching about 2,000 people a month, 2,000 downloads a month. And those are only the downloads. We don't know how many people are actually listening, right? Because it could be more than that. We're on Spotify. We're in 54 different countries. We have gone from the 8th page of Google Best Christian Podcast to the 3rd page of Google, which of course, as you know, still means nothing until you're on the 1st page of Google. But, you know, here we have this church that meets in a middle school, and yet we have the opportunity to reach out into the world in a way that we never would have even imagined. And we're starting to hear from different places. I'm sure you probably have been around to see the guy from Poland that sent us a message that when he listens 10 Steps Further every week in Poland. And I wanted to show you this one. This is another one we got. This was from India, all right?
The first thing I noticed about 10 Steps Further is how refreshingly honest and relevant the discussions were. Somehow every week I was left with a new thought process that positively influenced my decisions and my state of mind altogether. And what I love the most about every episode is no matter where the conversation goes, there is always a verse that ties it down to the Bible, which is simply amazing. I love this podcast, and I know that every day when I listen to it, there is a blessing that comes into my day because of the podcast. I truly hope and pray that this goes places.
Isn't that awesome? Thank you for the one person that's clapping for us. I appreciate that. I realize it's early on a Sunday morning, but you guys allow us to do this and to reach out into the world to make a difference. And we're only just beginning. Over this next year, we're paying somebody to help get Rise Us in Google, and that's going to stop in a couple of months. And then we are going to be spending that money to go on iHeartRadio, which will help us reach even more people. So it's really, really a cool thing. Yeah. And these guys have been part of it. Jonathan's been part of it ever since the beginning.
Yep. I'm on every one. Is this on?
You want to turn their mics on?
Yeah,
Is this one on?
Here we go.
Nope.
Do you have?
Yeah, yours on. It is? Oh, I'm just not as loud as it
How
was.
about now?
Oh, yeah, baby. Maybe turn Leslie up a little bit, huh? Give some more juice. So, all right. So today we're doing another podcast. It's called Finishing Well. We just talked about it. We've talked about it over this last week. Typically, generally, those meetings beforehand are way better than the actual podcast. So we apologize in advance for this podcast.
It's going to be great.
Yeah, it's going to be great. All right. Should we start off? Do we have our theme music?
Yeah, do you have that bumper? Can you play that?
10 Steps Further is a podcast designed to help you get 10 steps further along your spiritual journey. If you've been on your journey for 30 years or 30 minutes, if you believe in God, or even if you're not sure He exists, all we're trying to do is help you get 10 steps further. I'm Jonathan, and this is Jack, and we're just taking a walk. Why don't you join us?
That sounds cool, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's actually cooler than the actual podcast.
There we go. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start it. I always start it. So if you haven't heard it, I always start it. So here we go.
All right.
And then
wait. Before we do that, we need to practice with them.
Oh, yeah.
Because at the end of every podcast we say, and if you do these things, you will get 10 steps further. So we want to practice that. If you do all these things, you will get 10 steps further. That sounded like they were really not motivated to do it.
They're going to be so hyped by the end that
By the end, they'll be
it'll
screaming
be so
that.
good. Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
That sounds good.
All right, so here we go. Welcome back to another episode of 10 Steps Further. We are actually recording this live at Canyon Springs Church. So we normally have 2 services, but currently on the last weekend of the year, we're all together for one service. So everybody's in here together. Say hi, guys.
Hooray!
Yeah. And we have Leslie Hyatt, the face of all women, because she's doing it live. We call her, so we've been calling Leslie the voice of all women because when we started and it was just me and Jack, we were like, hey, give us feedback. And the constant word was...
We only got one kind of feedback.
Yeah, it was like, we don't like listening to guys alone. Like, you need a woman's perspective. So we call Leslie
Look at
the
that.
voice.
And then they put a lot of pressure on when Jonathan came up with this name of the voice of all women.
Okay,
I'm
but
like,
tell
there's
them.
no way every woman agrees with me.
Okay,
Right.
tell them, though, about your trip to Kansas City.
Oh, well, we have really good friends who live in Kansas City, and so we went for a wedding, and we saw some friends, and her dad really loves 10 Steps Further, and so she sent him a video, and she said, Dad, you're never going to believe who's with me. And then he messaged right back, and he said, don't tell me it's the voice of all women.
So I have this vision that someday she's going to be walking through Disneyland, and somebody's going to say, there she is, the voice of all women.
Yeah. I think she should start her own podcast called The Voice of All Women.
I think so, too.
So this is we're doing this on the last the last Sunday of the year. This will come out online. We'll put it out Tuesday, so it'll be actually in the new year. But our topic we figured was appropriate for it. Our topic is
It's one of 2 things. I like one, you guys like the other one. All right, so they want to call it finishing well, and I want to call it your life in one sentence.
yeah. I'm good with either one. So
Okay,
it's you,
all
and
right.
you and Leslie are
I
fighting.
think that mine wins.
You always think the yours win, so. Okay, so I did some research and I looked up what was written on people's tombstones. Okay, so the point of this podcast is how do we focus our life? How do we bring it to a place where we are focused on the right things?
Right.
So that when we get done, we have finished well, we've done something that is valuable.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd look up different tombstones, okay? And so here's one. Okay, James A. Sheldon, he was a lawyer. And this was on his tombstone. I'm not making this up. It simply says, "The defense rests." Okay, you like that one? Okay, good. Good. I'm motivated now. Okay, here's another one. This is real, man. I can't believe this is real. And it says on this dad's tombstone, raised 4 beautiful daughters with only 1 bathroom, and still there was love.
Put it on his tombstone, man.
Okay. All right. Do you guys, any of you guys remember Merv Griffin? Okay. You have to be old to remember
no.
Merv. Merv Griffin is like the original. You didn't even know who he was?
No, I've heard the name.
Oh, that's right. Well, you didn't have electricity for the first 7 years of your life, so
That's
so
true.
that makes sense. Okay. So Merv Griffin, he's like the original talk show host. Okay. And on his tombstone, I saw it. It says, "I will not be right back after this message."
Oh, really?
Is that rough?
People are having too much fun.
Okay. You remember Rodney Dangerfield?
Kinda. I know
Sort
who
of.
he is.
Okay,
He has
thank you.
Big eyeballs.
Okay.
Right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
That's okay. You can say it. He's not listening. I'm reading his gravestone. And it says on his tombstone, "There goes the neighborhood."
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right, let me read more of a legit one. This is Winston Churchill. "I am ready to meet my maker. Whether my maker is prepared for the great ordeal of meeting me is another matter."
Jonathan didn't like that one.
You
No,
didn't li-
I'm trying to figure out, like, is he being arrogant? Like, the real question is God ready to meet me? Like, is that, I mean, that seems, I don't know. I'm not picking up what he's putting down.
It does. Okay, here, this one's a little deeper, right? It says, "Prepare for death and follow me," on this guy's tombstone. And then underneath it, somebody added this: "To follow you, I am not content. How do I know which way you went?"
Wow.
Huh? Right? Right?
Sounds like a Dr. Seuss tombstone.
It actually feels like I'm going on forever, but we're just going to end this podcast
You
with
will
these.
yeah.
All right, I like this one. See if you can guess this one. All right, well, even throw this out to the audience. Maybe they can guess this one.
No way.
On his tombstone, it simply says, "That's all, folks." Anyone? That's right, Mel Blanc, the voice of Porky Pig.
Yeah, I would have guessed Porky Pig, but
Yeah, you would have guessed Porky Pig. So I think a gravestone can just say something about your life.
right.
But I don't know if it necessarily is the best indicator of who you are and how you lived your life, because you can pretty much commission your gravestone while you're alive.
Right.
I saw this one, and it said simply this: "My Jesus, mercy," which sounds like a great gravestone. And yet, that is Al Capone's gravestone. Right? Now, let me read you a quote, okay? Charles Spurgeon put it like this: "A good character is the best tombstone. Those who loved you and were helped by you will remember you when forget-me-nots have withered. Carve your name on hearts, not on marble." So it is the people in our lives that we want to carve our name into.
Yeah. It doesn't matter what we say about ourselves.
That's right.
It's like you can, I'm reliable, but if you're not reliable, people are going to, no, you're not, right? I mean,
Right.
all of us have that perspective about ourselves. Hey, put this on my tombstone. People will remember me that way, but no.
Sometimes people don't really know them as well as they think they do either.
Yeah.
Right.
I might have a perception of who I am or what I do, but my actions and the way that I speak to people and all of that, they actually have sometimes a better perspective of who you actually are than yourself sometimes.
It's kind of a self-awareness deal.
Yeah.
So I think I told you guys the very first funeral I ever did, I was called out, and they sent me the eulogy because I had never met him. I only knew his kids, and that's how I got the gig. And so they sent it to me, and this guy was amazing. Like, he was in World War II as a fighter pilot, and then he got hired by Goodyear, which sounds really boring, except that he was a test pilot for the Goodyear blimp.
Oh, that's awesome.
I know, right? And then one of the last jobs he did, he test piloted ejector seats. It was crazy. And I read all about this guy. It was like he was Chuck Yeager, he was Gus Grissom, I'm struggling to find a guy in space that you would know, Jonathan.
I know.
But it was amazing. And then when I showed up at the funeral, there were maybe 12 people there.
Wow.
And they could barely get anybody to share. In fact, a couple of his kids shared, and the best thing that they could say about him was that he really, really loved his dogs.
Wow. You kind of wonder, like, that's one of the things in our previous talks about this, that it just struck me of some people, it's going to sound bad, but if they die younger, more people are going to show up, right? I mean,
That's
a
true.
lot of people stop going. Like, it's not that they didn't actually have a good life and make an impact. It's just that they didn't keep doing that.
So what are you recommending?
Keep doing that.
Okay.
Yeah. Live fast and die young. Is that?
I understand what you're saying. I just didn't understand your point.
Right.
So anyway, this is what Jesus put it, all right? And he says this, and I think it's a good goal for us. "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I'll put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness." To finish your life at this point, have Jesus say, "Well done.
Yeah.
You did it. You were about what I was about."
Right.
All right? So I want to ask you guys a question. First off, what do you want to be known for?
Oh man. Like we were talking about kind of the gravestone thing. I don't know if that's the next one or if that's this one. But that idea, just kind of thinking about it, I'm like, what is it that I feel right now? I feel like it may change over the next 20 years, but this season of my life, I would say it has to have something to do with joy, and enjoying the walk, enjoying the journey. I want it to be said, but more I want it to be true, that I enjoyed the walk that God gave me. I enjoyed the road. I've had for a long time, I think it was more ambitious and achievement and do this. And there came a point where it's just like, no, I can't do that. It's rough. I need to find a way to enjoy the journey.
I actually think you're really good at doing that.
You know what? I don't want this to be like a Jonathan eulogy ceremony,
Right.
but not only do I feel like you're good at enjoying the journey, whatever that is,
Yeah.
but you, generally speaking, bring joy to the people around you.
Yeah,
And I think
try.
it's that attitude. Okay, I'll
Yeah.
sign off on that.
Yeah,
gravestone.
that's good enough.
And
He enjoyed the journey.
You take everything in stride, I feel like. So it's not like you've had this super great, easy
Right.
life, your whole, you know?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
anything that happens, you really do seem like you take it in stride. And you're like, well,
That's
tomorrow's
right.
another day.
That's right. Your dad died when you were how old?
14.
14 years
Yeah.
old, and had no electricity for the first 7 years. I mean, those are
Yeah.
some things to kind of overcome.
Yeah. Yeah.
You lived in Spokane?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, come on.
Well, and truly, I mean, I would say even San Diego is part of that enjoying the journey. You know, it's just like, okay, we were doing ministry in Spokane, and we're just like, is this really, you know, I mean, we're doing it, we're trying to be faithful to what God's called us to do, but there was always this like, man, I would love to do something else. And I actually made a little short video where I made this statement, like, if it's awesome, that doesn't mean it's selfish. And that you can actually serve people and bless people and encourage people and strengthen people while doing the things that you love to do and that you were made to do. And that was in me. That was partly just for me talking myself into. It's not a bad thing if you're enjoying the ride.
Right.
And I'm convinced even the Apostle Paul, even Jesus enjoyed the ride. As these guys are going through prison and beatings and suffering, that they're actually driven in this enjoyment process in the midst of it, that they have found joy in the struggle.
Yeah, I actually think Paul says that in that struggle, that it was a ride.
Right.
I think when you're fulfilling God's purpose for your life and you're using the gifts that he gave you, that's actually when you have the most joy. So you are receiving joy because you're using the things that you're
Right.
actually good at and enjoying the things that he gave you.
Yeah.
And I would say, too, that the people here that work at Canyon Springs on this team, it feels to me like they just make it fun. It's just awesome. Okay, Leslie, Tombstone, lay it out.
That's a lot of pressure.
Well,
but-
it's a little scary because you feel like if you say it, then maybe like you're going to die next week or something.
No, not that so much, but that I know everybody in this room and they're going to be
That is true. That is really true.
just say it out loud in front of all these people.
Okay, but what would you want?
I think that I would love if my line said, she loved beyond her capacity.
Okay, yeah, I like that.
So I think that regardless of what I'm going through or the craziness or the busyness or how much I have on my plate or don't have at my plate on any given moment, that I see and value people and love them even more than I feel like I have to give.
Okay. I like it.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I've always thought, as far as, because I've given this thought, I've written my eulogy for you if you want to give it. But you know what I want? I would like, I'm not sure what I'd exactly put on my tombstone. One of the things I want to be known for is just that I kept showing up. I wasn't the best I just kept showing up in the lives of my kids and my church or whatever.
Right.
But really, at my funeral, I want people to not just hear my highlight reel.
Yeah.
I want them to know that I was a guy that struggled, and I struggled with perfectionism, and I didn't always do the right thing, because sometimes you leave those moments and you feel like, wow, I've just got to be perfect or people aren't going to remember me right. And I just don't think that's true. I think you do what God's called you to do, and sometimes when you're in a public position like mine, you do what God's called you to do, and people will notice the things you don't do well. It's just part of the journey, and that's okay.
Yeah.
If you just keep showing up, I think that's a good thing.
I like it.
Okay.
I think that's one of the greatest things, though, end of life is super hard, but my grandma just passed away, and I think it's the greatest thing to sit back and reflect. You don't remember all these random bad moments that happen. You sit and reflect on these memories that you shared together and words of encouragement that they put into your life, and I think that's something that's super awesome that we should actually try to do more often with one another, is
Right.
share how much we really value and appreciate people for what they're doing and pouring into our lives.
I know. I think that's what you said, right? Like I wish Grandma was here so that she could hear actually all these things, right?
Yeah, when we were in the room with her as she was dying, and we spoke all those things to her, so she heard it. But it would have been nice if we could have seen her smile and see how it filled her up. I don't know why we wait all the way until the end.
Right. I know I've used this quote before, but forgive me. It's Garrison Keillor who said, "They say such nice things about people at their funeral. It makes me sad that I'm going to miss mine by just a few days." Okay, so if the goal is finishing well, then we want to challenge you guys to, in some ways that we think will help you finish well. And I've asked you guys to write down some. I'm not sure you did your
I've got a
homework.
little bit of stuff written down.
Okay, yeah, I'm looking.
Yeah, it's a little bit. It's all
Yeah,
triggers, man,
I'd like
triggers.
it to switch from less morbid of finishing well to like, how do we start the new year well?
Yeah, I think that's
Finishing this
good.
year well and starting
Right,
the new year
right.
well with a full life.
So we'll say, do this before you die. How's that? Okay, so do you guys want me to start or do you want to start?
Go for it.
Okay.
Yeah, lead
All
us.
right. Make sure that you are pursuing something that is significant.
Okay.
All right, I have a quote for you. Dallas Willard told this story. One of my favorite stories is about the dog races in Florida. They trained these dogs to chase an electric rabbit, and one night the rabbit broke down and the dogs caught it. But they didn't know what to do with it. They were just leaping around, yelping and biting each other, totally confused about what was happening. I think that's a picture of what happens to all sorts of people who catch their rabbit in life, whether it's wealth or fame or beauty or a bigger house or whatever. The prize isn't what they thought it would be. And when they finally get it, they don't know what to do with their lives. This is a huge factor in finishing badly. People need a rabbit that won't break down.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think fits in that category of a rabbit that won't break down, that's something that's significant? We'll start with Leslie.
Awesome. Well, I don't know.
You just said something. We just talked about this.
So I talk a lot about, I'm very relational and I love relationships, and I think that relationships are so valuable. And, I was saying about how in Matthew they say, teacher, tell us what's the greatest commandment. And he said, first, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. And next, love your enemy, love your neighbor, love people. And so I was saying that I think that if we're really looking to what it is that God is calling us to do, it's to love people. And Jack, really nice, true to self, pushed back and said,
Well, yeah. I mean, everybody's going to do that, right? Like, I'm going to love my kids. It feels like if I'm sitting down with coffee for anybody,
Right.
they're all going to say, oh, yeah, I should spend time with my wife and my kids. Boom, I'm done.
Right.
to which my rebuttal was that if you're not in relationship with God first, that's what he says, first love the Lord your God. If you're not in relationship with him first, it's going to be hard to love the people who are hard to love or the unlovable. And so I think that if we get in those situations that feels hard to love people, then you need to reflect back first on like, what's my relationship with God right now? And am I in close relationship with him? Because if I'm not being fed and if I'm not seeking after him, it is going to be hard to love the unlovable. I also was just commenting that I think when we talk about relationships, it's not just like love the people you love, but it's also reflect on who you're spending all of your time with. If you're going through a really hard time and you're struggling in your marriage and you're spending a lot of time with people who are like divorced or who are, not putting their spouses first, then you're not necessarily investing in the relationships that are going to be feeding you the truth and wisdom that you need to hear at that given time and moment. And so I don't think it's just about like loving the people who are easy to love. It's about reflecting on all of your relationships and knowing if the little bit of time that we have that's free, are you investing in the relationships and the ones that are going to be the best for you to keep growing you as a whole?
Yeah. I think that part of it too is an eternal perspective. Like, if you're chasing a rabbit that you can catch, then you're chasing the wrong thing. Like, if you can catch it in this life, if there's a point where you're like, on this point, I'm satisfied, I'm done. Retirement, a certain position within a company or something like that. If that's the main pursuit, then you're going to catch it and you're going to stop. And you're not going to know what to do, but you're going to stop.
Right.
And I feel like that there's a pursuit that's beyond that, an eternal pursuit. I remember my grandfather. I was talking to him one time, and I think I was kind of whining about it. My mom was in the kitchen or something, and we're all there. And I think Sandy and I probably were just talking about how broke we were about in a certain situation. And I was like, yeah, I'm in ministry. Like that's what I do. So we don't really ever have a lot. And my grandfather said to me, but man, the retirement's out of this world. And just recognizing but that's not why you did that. That's not why you're going that route. It's recognizing, for me, it had a lot to do with When I was young, my dad died at 14, but in high school, my best friend's brother was killed in a car accident. A kid that I spoke at his funeral got struck by lightning walking home from school. I mean, there was this span of time where it was like way too many kids that I knew were just randomly dying. And I remember telling people, I said, do you believe in God? I'd grown up in the church. I said, do you believe in God? And I didn't care what their answer was. I was just looking to get to the next part of my statement, which was, there has to be something more than what we have here. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life looking for it. And when I find it, I will spend the rest of my life living for it. And that has been the pursuit. That's been challenged over the years of just like, you could make more money doing this, or you could, have a nicer place or nicer house, or your kids could have better things, or whatever it is. But God's continually blessed us and taken care of us. And that's been our story. But it's just been this, like, I think at probably 14, 15, 16 years old, it was just ingrained in me that life ends suddenly. Could be short, could be long, but it ends.
Right. So I was saying that, and Leslie's saying, look, pursue people, right?
Yeah.
And you push back a little bit on that people's not number one on that list.
Absolutely, yeah. So, I mean, that's been one of the things. They come to Jesus, they say, what's the greatest commandment? There's the 10. They had 613 rules. Jesus, which one's the top one? And his response was, the first and greatest commandment is to love the Lord your God with all your heart. And the second is like it, to love your neighbor as yourself. And for me, like, I'm just like, there's still a 1 and there's still a 2. You can do number 2 without doing number 1. You can love your neighbor without loving God, but you cannot love God without loving your neighbor. And so I really feel like so often we can get in the horizontal mode of reaching out and miss that moment where Jesus is saying, well, just come to me, be with me. And I feel that's the ultimate goal, is like, Lord, if a relationship is going to suffer, let it not be this one.
So there's a verse, I just keep camping on this in my life, and I share it at so many different places and lunches or whatever, because I feel like this is what God is trying to communicate to me right now.
Yeah.
And it's basically this, and I haven't fully memorized it, but you'll get the gist. Let not the wise man boast of his wisdom, or the rich man boast of his riches, or the mighty man boast of his might, but let him who boast of this, that he understands and knows me.
Yep.
That is hey, I got an amen. Did you guys hear that? The amen guy showed up. I love it.
Dump it in, yeah.
But look, that's life.
Yep.
Life is about, number one, being in relationship with this God who's going to grow you and deepen you and help you to understand what's really important.
Yeah.
And then once you're in that relationship, he's going to push you out to people.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so let me read you another story. Patrick Morley, he wrote the book Man in the Mirror, and he writes this. But he writes about the nagging sense he had when he wasn't getting life right. As he started to become successful in his work, people who used to ignore him began to court him. He felt connected because so many people wanted a piece of him. But they were superficial relationships based on his utility to others, not significant friendships of genuine intimacy. At the same time, the people who needed him most, particularly his children, were getting the least of him. And then he said this, "We've arrived," he said to his wife one day. "Yes, but at the wrong place," she replied.
Wow.
Then this thought occurred to them. Why not prioritize everything we do on the basis of who's going to be crying at our funeral? Why should you and I give ourselves to people who don't love us at the expense of those who do? Okay, you want me to lay out a crazy stat for you?
Yes.
I don't know who comes up with these stats or even if I believe them.
Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah.
But certainly you'll find them.
That's right, I'll find them. That at the average funeral, only 10 people will cry for the deceased.
Wow.
No.
On average, only 10 will cry. And check this out.
That's a lie. I see other people nodding. That is not true.
I don't know, man. It's a
That's
statistic.
what
We got to
Abraham
believe
Lincoln
it, right?
says. We're going to go with it.
How many people did they pull? Like 3 funerals?
So is a guy's name is
Do you know how to do research? Because we don't think your methodologies are right. 10 people?
It's average.
Okay.
There's a lot of bad people.
that was all right. I'm sure Leslie is right and Newsweek is wrong, which is where that comes from.
USC?
Okay? Right.
People matter.
So is quoted by a guy named Darren Hardy, and he says, I was floored. You mean I could work hard all my life trying to do good and please others, and in the end, only 10 people will care enough to cry? And then, according to the article, he quotes this, the number one factor that determines whether someone will attend your graveside ceremony is, drumroll please, wait for it, the weather.
Oh my gosh, this is the worst article you've ever read in church. It's not true. Don't believe anything he says.
Don't worry, we're in San
About
Diego.
this.
Lots of people are going to show up.
And that is why you should move to San Diego.
Right.
I would say, generally speaking, if you want to do something significant, it's going to be in one of those two areas, right? It's in growing your relationship with God
Yep.
and pouring into people. And we kind of have this advantage because we work on a church staff, we work with people all the time. Look, man, whatever your job is, there are people there.
Yeah.
Whatever your school is, there are people there. There are people everywhere. Pour into them because that's what's significant. One of the things that my wife has said so many times to me is there's one thing that you can do on earth that you cannot do in heaven, and that is love lost people.
Yeah.
And I think that's what God calls us to do. Okay, that's my one. What's your one, Jonathan?
The one thing, I love this story of Caleb in the Old Testament. So we have, Moses. You've seen the movie. Moses takes the people.
And you wouldn't know this unless it was in a movie.
Moses takes the people out of Egypt, and then they take the short little hike over to Israel, and God says, okay, go take the land, and they go in and they send in 12 spies, and 10 of them come back and say, there are giants there. We don't want to go in. And 2 of them say, come on, let's go. And the 2 were Joshua and Caleb. And so God says, well, if you're not going to go in, you guys can walk around in the desert for 40 years and I'll die, and then your kids could go in. And so that's what happens. They just walk in circles in the desert, and God takes care of them, but he basically just raises up another generation to do it because that generation was unwilling. But when they get back there, most everybody's dead. Joshua and Caleb are not. Joshua leads the people in, and Caleb is now 80. And I love this statement. So he's going in, and he says, I'm now 80, and I am as strong as I was when I was 40. Give me the land of the giants. And he goes in at 80 years old, and I remember hearing a sermon about this, of just like, how do you have that strength you had when you were 40, when you're 80? And it's got to be, he had his mind set, his heart set, I'm going to get that land. I saw it, and I want it, and I'm going after it, and I want the promise that was given to me. It wasn't, I'm 80 years old, somebody give me a place, easy. He wanted to go conquer giants. And I just feel like that's the thing. Like, I don't ever want to get to that point where it's like I'm living to travel the world collecting seashells. I want to just keep on, Lord, what is the mountain? Where is the hill that I can conquer? What is the thing that you've got for me? And we just keep moving forward. And I just feel like it's just continue to take on big things.
Right.
If you're going to finish well, I mean, that's I think a big part of it is, or are you just going to be like, I've arrived, I've got a good check coming every month, and now I'm just going to drink my life away, which was the initial story it sounds like you told, and people just like, oh, he loved his dogs.
Right.
I don't want that to be my story.
Yeah. The story of Nehemiah goes like this, that Nehemiah knew, he had heard word that the walls around Jerusalem had fallen down. He had been taken into captivity. The walls of Jerusalem had fallen down. The city he grew up in is now lying in ruins.
Right.
And what was his response? He cried, he wept, and he contemplated that for days. He couldn't get it out of his head. And one thing that I would challenge people to do is find the thing you're passionate about. Are you passionate about missions? It's so funny. There's a buddy, and he's in the room, and I'm not going to call him out, Eric, but we had lunch together, and he said, man, why do you want to have lunch with me? And I said, I just want to hang out. He says, no, man, I thought you were going to talk me into going to Haiti. And you know what? Haiti is for some people.
Yeah.
Haiti's not for everybody. Everybody has something that is different.
Right.
Some people have, they want to feed homeless people. Randy Winnick's in the crowd. That's his passion.
Right.
Other people have a passion for the people in their work.
Yeah.
Other people have a passion, to care for kids and, teaching children's ministry or whatever. But you've got to find that one thing that you are passionate about that will keep driving you, right?
Yeah, that's one of the things. I mean, we joke a lot about how I am not very mechanical or handy in any way. And that's one of my kind of cop-outs to doing stupid jobs I don't like to do, like my car brakes. And I'm just like, there are people who love working on cars. Why would I do that? Like, why would I could pay somebody and I could figure out a way to make money doing something I love to do to not have to do anything on the car. And he's constantly challenged me on that.
Yeah, okay, let's just figure out.
Happened in their house. I would hate to take away Sandy's passion to load the dishwasher.
Exactly,
And just
exactly.
leave them
No,
in the sink.
that's
I know she
different.
loves to load the dishwasher.
That's a training opportunity for the kid. That's a whole different.
Jonathan.
Okay, how many
Every
people?
time we do a podcast, I know that Jonathan and I are so different.
Oh, right,
Yep.
right. No, every time we do a podcast, we just all wish that Sandy lived in our house.
That's also true. I miss Sandy.
Seems like she does everything.
She does. She's right
Okay,
there.
before we're going to run out of time, Leslie, what would you challenge? You got these people here, and you're the voice of every single woman in the world.
Right.
What would you challenge people to finish well?
I mean, I already kind of spoke to it, but I think both of it. I think that really what I would think about going into this year is twofold. And one is that we kind of touched on it. If you are using the gifts that God has given you, and if you're fulfilling the purpose that you feel like He's put in your life at any given moment, you're going to have joy, and you're going to feel a lot of self-worth, and you're going to be feeding and pouring into so many of people around you. And then second, I just think that I would encourage and challenge people to reflect on the relationships and what relationships you're investing in. And are you allocating the little bit of time you have in this chaotic, crazy world? Are those relationships that you're pouring into, are they pouring back into you in a way that's healthy and it's going to draw you closer to God and to those positive relationships?
It's good.
I think that is good.
It's really good.
Go ahead. Do you have
So
another
I have some Bible in front of me. Hebrews chapter 12 follows Hebrews chapter 11, and Hebrews chapter 11 talks about all of the.
He's got all the good
I
knowledge.
know.
He
So
does. He
that's
does.
all I got.
It does. And you'll listen to him, not Newsweek. I understand.
So Hebrews 11 is all these stories of all these people who live by faith, and they finished well. I mean, some of them died terrible deaths. Some of them lived prosperous lives, but they all finished well. They call it the Hall of Faith. Then you get to chapter 12, and the writer of Hebrews, many people think it's Paul, but we don't know for sure. He says this. He says, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, speaking of the people that he just referred to in chapter 11, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of God, of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinners, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. And I just really feel like it's, there's this forgetting the things that are behind, it's running forward, it's, if all your stories are from 10 to 20 years ago of just like, hey, here's the steps of faith I took, no, forget even the good, forget the bad, the things that are hindering you from continuing to run, set them aside, put them aside, forget about them. It could be shame, it could be guilt, it could be anything that's holding you back. And then you just set your eyes on Jesus, and every single day. That's one of the things that I love about New Year's, and I love about Sunday morning, is it's a fresh start. And I absolutely love fresh starts. That every single day you're starting again, putting on the shoes, and continue to run.
So here's what the other one that I wanted to make sure we talked about, and it doesn't have to be long, but
Yeah.
I think you just said it. It's part of it is maintaining your character for the long haul.
Yeah.
That you're not just going to be good for now and then do whatever you want, but you're going to continue to pursue that, because how much good can you accomplish? And then at the end, you blow it. At the end, you have an affair, you leave your wife, you start doing just living for you.
Yeah.
I have one more quote, all right? It's called The Road to Character by David Brooks, and he starts the book out like this. I've been thinking about the difference between resume virtues and eulogy virtues. The resume virtues are the ones you list on your resume, the skills that bring to the job market and contribute to your external success. Eulogy virtues are deeper. They're the virtues that get talked about at your funeral, the ones that exist at the core of your being, whether you are kind, brave, honest, faithful, what kind of relationships you formed. Most of us would say that eulogy virtues are more important than resume virtues, but I confess that for long stretches of my life, I've spent more time talking about the latter than the former. Most of us have clearer strategies for how to achieve career success than we do on how to develop a profound character. And I would follow it up like this. Proverbs 10:9 says, whoever walks in integrity walks securely, but he who makes his ways crooked will be found out. So to put God first, to seek him, and to make sure that your character makes it.
Yeah.
All right, you guys have a last statement?
Not really.
Good. It's good.
Thought I gave it. Yeah.
It's good.
Finish strong.
Finish strong and like people, right, Leslie?
Like people.
That's
There we
right.
go.
All right. Well, okay. So if you do all of these things, you will get 10 steps further. Thank you, guys.
Isn't that how they do the prices right?
I think so.
All right. We'll see you guys next time.
All right.